I am Special Agent James Curry. I am the Division Chief for Code 10D, which is basically our Human Resources Division. I haven't always been in Human Resources. I've been with the Naval Criminal Investigative Service, NCIS, for about 16 years. Have made an entire career of it, and have loved every second of it. I started out my career in Parris Island, South Carolina, and that was my first duty station as an agent after training. And I started in general crimes. And in general crimes, worked basically felony level investigations for several years, and moved on to Hawaii, where I got to do counterintelligence and what we call a country restaurant job, which I'll explain a little bit more in a little bit. And from there, I went into procurement fraud in San Diego, and then back to counterintelligence as a supervisor in Norfolk, Virginia. Back into procurement fraud as a supervisor back up here in DC, and then now over to headquarters, where I am now working in the HR department. So one of the great things about this agency is the ability to go a variety of different places, do a variety of different things, and then ultimately come back around and as my time in headquarters to be able to share those experiences, not just with our employees in-house and the new agents coming on and the new employees, but also all of you and people that we've done engagements with, whether it's the universities or other types of groups that we meet up with and kind of tell our story and who we are as an agency. But I do get sometimes, even though we have television shows, right? We have the NCIS TV show. I still get a lot of questions and a lot of inquiries about what it is exactly we do. So I appreciate it with Gabe and the University of Maryland to invite me over and to have this opportunity to do this information session. As you can see on your screen, I did a PowerPoint presentation. We put one together for you all, and I'm going to go through it, and it'll help guide me through some of the discussions. You'll be able to read some of the slides. I'm not going to go into every little word on there, but if you have a question or anything like that along the way, please post it. Gabe will let me know. We'll also do a Q&A at the end if there's any more questions. But let's start this through. So here, basically just the mission. And I love this first slide because it's really just a snapshot of everything that we do or can do in the agency, specifically as agents, but also in other types of roles. There are actually different types of jobs here in front of you that you see. And this really encompasses all of what we are. There we go. So our mission, basically our mission is we defeat threats from across the foreign intelligence, terrorist, and criminal spectrum. But we do it in order to protect the Navy and the Marine Corps warfighter. We are a Department of Navy entity. So NCIS falls under the Department of Navy. And you'll see we're actually a predominantly civilianized force. We do have active duty military members that work with us and under us. And it is a small portion. It's one of the unique things about our agency. But our mission and our mission writ large is to help protect the Navy and the Marine Corps warfighter, whether it's protect them sometimes, unfortunately, from themselves, or protect them from foreign intelligence or terrorist entities and others that seek to harm the work that they do. So that ultimately is our mission. So we have strategic goals that we like to cite. One is we prevent, right? So prevent terrorism and related hostile acts. We protect, where we're really just protecting the critical information, all the research and development, all these amazing pieces of equipment that the Navy designs or the Marine Corps designs and utilizes. You know, that needs protection as well. Sometimes it's not the individual, it's actual proprietary information. And ultimately, we want to reduce crime and how that impacts the readiness of the forces. It's interesting if you see, and if you look at statistics, less crime does make for more efficient work, and that's exactly what this reduction aspect is. If I would love to see, at least in the Department of the Navy, I'd love to see it worldwide, but I'd love to see it in the Department of the Navy that zero criminal activity, right? That we have zero criminals out there. I'd be out of a job, but I would be happy to be out of a job for that. But unfortunately, it is stuff that we do see and we do get involved in to help try to reduce that. Here's just a quick snapshot of our personnel overview. Of all of our personnel, we are about 50% special agents. So about half of the workforce is all special agents. And the remaining 50% is split up between some active duty military support. And we have a large cadre that are professional staff, whether that's administrative work, intelligence specialists, cyber individuals that aren't agents. There's even HR staffing personnel that I work with all the time. Those are the types of personnel that help make up the workforce all together. And this is just a quick snapshot of the civilian aspect and how that's broken down. And you can see more of those jobs. So in the civilian makeup of the agency, 56% of us are special agents. And then we have the business and security operations, the administrative work, other types of investigators in the 1800 series, and then computer specialists and a variety of different people that help form that. We have a civilian director, and that civilian director reports directly to the Secretary of the Navy, who is a civilian as well, correct? So it keeps the undue influence from a military command, since sometimes those are the people that we investigate, but more often than not, we like to work side by side with them and protecting the rest of the items too. Here's just an operational overview. These are our 4 major subject lines in terms of what we work, and I'll go through those missions in a minute. But just these numbers really capture, I think, the amount of work that we do, and this is all in just 1 year, from 9,770 criminal investigations, but we also have over 18,000 counterintelligence and counterterrorism activities, and that could be, a single contact to go get some more information, or running a full investigation or operation against a suspected entity. Our intelligence division, we do a lot of sharing, and I'll get to some of that as well, but ultimately we do a lot of work in these 4 realms. Here's what I think is one of the really unique things about our agency, and kind of one of the great things about it too, is unlike some of our law enforcement partners, we are worldwide. We have to be. The Navy and the Marine Corps are worldwide. We have to be right there with them all along the way. So as you can see, this tends to surprise a lot of people, but we are in 191 offices in 41 countries. So those 191 offices might just be onesie twosie agents in the office and a staff person, but we have very, very large, what we call reach back capability in getting around the world and getting information around the world and helping all over the place. And this includes, if you notice at the bottom right corner, on board every Navy aircraft carrier and the amphibious readiness groups. So probably the most unique job that we have in the agency is the ability to go afloat. We call them special agents afloat, and we send them out on the big aircraft carriers or the amphib ships, and we send them all around the world, and they go to all the port calls. They do a lot of protective work. They do a lot of intelligence support, and then they also unfortunately have to investigate crimes that happen on a ship, because when you have something like an aircraft carrier, it's basically a floating city, and to be there and to have that type of mission is very critical to our continued relationship in the Navy, and it's an amazing job. So being able to do something like that is one of the things that makes NCIS very, very unique and pretty amazing. You know, I've talked to people who have interest in other law enforcement entities, and you know, whether it's CBP, which is a great agency, Homeland Security, you know, they're protecting the homeland. There's very few opportunities to go overseas with those types of agencies, even with the FBI. And I love the FBI and their mission, but there's very few and far between around the world. And yet we are there. We are on all these places that you can see on this map. And these are just the central places that we can be. So here in the United States, and specifically, we have, these are all our field offices. So we have 10 major field offices in the United States, which includes Hawaii. And these are usually where first-time agents are stationed somewhere along these lines of field offices. And you can see we're kind of in the major military corners up there in the Northwest in Silverdale, very big Navy town up there. That's where we're going to be. It's a big port there. And then you can see the Southwest, Hawaii even. So all of those are heavy military locations with the Navy and the Marine Corps. I left this slide in here just so you can see a snapshot. We break our areas of operation up by Pacific and Atlantic. This just shows that worldwide capability again, and where our regional operations offices are. But it's important to note, especially the SSAAT, is basically security training and assessment teams. These are teams that we have around the world, mostly made up of a collection of active duty and civilian personnel, not always agents, and rarely actually agents in there. And they do a lot of local training with local law enforcement or with the military units that are forward deployed. They also help do our port visit support, where they go to a port anywhere in the world, and they basically help decide how vulnerable that port may be to an attack or to whatever. And it helps us gear up as agents as we go in to help support the ships when they arrive, to kind of know what we're dealing with. So I'll talk about the mission areas. This was just briefly on the earlier slide, but the first one is really national security. National security encompasses a wide variety of things. In all reality, a lot of times we just think it's espionage, that we're trying to catch spies. But there's a much larger aspect to that, right? There's foreign intelligence that's trying to collect on us. They want to know what kind of things we're working on. They want to be able to report back to their home countries what our vulnerabilities might be, what our weaknesses might be. And so that's just a mission in itself, trying to stop that. As open as we can be as a country, you know, we have these people in this country that are from other country agencies, and their sole job is to try to collect this information. And one of our major jobs is try to prevent that. And that's not just from foreign intelligence, but that could be procurement processes, right? That could be business processes. It can be a variety of different things that they can collect on. And so the other part of that is terrorism as well. So terrorism falls under the National Security Directorate. And as you can imagine, that's a very big mission that we have. We link up in the Joint Terrorism Task Force groups with the Bureau and other agencies, but we also have our own force protection requirements at all these different bases all around the world. So it can be a very daunting job within national security, and you can see how busy they are. One of the things we do is we brief personnel on what it takes to be vulnerable to counterintelligence or to the intelligence collection world. So we need to teach the Navy, civilian Navy, the active duty Navy, how to protect themselves at home and not be targets for this as well. So it's a wide variety of things that we have to do within the National Security Directorate. The other mission area is criminal investigations and operations. This is really any felony level felony level crime that's committed in the Navy or the Marine Corps or impacted by the Navy and Marine Corps. So yes, we do homicide, we do rape cases, sexual assault, child physical and sexual abuse, burglary, robbery, larceny of government property. So all of those types of cases we will take on, and we have investigators and agents out there conducting these investigations on a daily basis. And sometimes, unfortunately, the subject of the crime might be a military member. Sometimes it's not. It's a civilian person that happened to be on base or that works on base even. And then also it could be things going on outside the base that impact the mission. In a lot of these local, or a lot of these military bases, the local crime going on outside that base does impact how things operate on base. And so sometimes we work very closely with the local law enforcement entities, whether it's sheriff's department or police department or whatever it might be, and we work closely with them and we help them out. And because we have that relationship of that base being in their community, and we want to make sure that everyone is well protected and helped. So we do that through mostly investigations, but we do operations as well. So we may do a drug operation where we have sources that tell us who is bringing in the drugs, and we're going to work with that source and maybe with the locals and try to catch them in the act. The same thing, unfortunately, with child sexual abuse. There's child predators out there. We know that. We are constantly hunting for them because they ultimately are looking for a child who they don't care if they're on base or if they're off base. And so again, we work closely in trying to build operations to catch those types of criminals. The very, very unique thing that we do in NCIS is we kind of work in two legal worlds. And one is the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is a separate legal system altogether than the federal legal process. And then we work in that as well. So we have to know as an agent how to navigate between both those very similar yet different worlds of legal systems. And so whether we're going to sit on the stand and testify at a military court-martial, or whether we're going to sit in federal court and testify in regards to our investigative activities, we need to be able to navigate both. And so we learn and grow in how we do things, but we ultimately have to do both worlds. One big thing is procurement fraud, one that's a little close to my own heart. I do enjoy procurement fraud investigations, product substitution, things like that. A lot of those cases go to the federal realm because usually it's a company that's trying to pull one over on the Navy or the Marine Corps. And so we'll get involved in those. And that's a lot of that is in the federal realm. But we do navigate both worlds. The intelligence and information sharing. So we have a large cadre of intelligence specialists and analysts, and their job is never ending. As you can see, they do a lot of threat awareness reporting and tracking. They do intelligence information reports. Their job is to kind of keep track of everything that's going on around the world, plus looking at the things that maybe the agents are doing out in the field or other personnel are doing out in the field, and how that relates. Is that relationable to something else that's going on, and can they tie that together? So it's a really fascinating job that they have with that analysis aspect, but not just collecting and analyzing, but disseminating that information. Who do they talk to? Who do they need to share that with? Who do they need to get that information to right away? And if it's the commanding officers of Naval or Marine Corps leadership, then that's where we need to get it to. If it's our law enforcement partners somewhere around the world, we may have to do that as well. And these guys and gals do that and do it very well. Final big mission area is cyber. As you can imagine, it's just exploded over the last, 5 years or more. Cyber is an amazing world that I'll be honest with you, I haven't quite cracked. I understand a lot of what they do, but I've never been really hands-on with them in there. But they all seem to love their job. that's for certain. And they do a variety of different stuff. So as you can see from this slide, it's not just investigations and operations, because special agents will also be cyber specialists, and they'll run investigations. They'll do operations where maybe they're countering a threat that's coming in on the networks or whatever it might be. And they may have to go out. Maybe a ship was hacked, right? A ship's network could be hacked, and then the investigators will go out and they'll try to determine where that came from and the source of it. But they also help with other things. Digital forensics is a big part. Every single case we have nowadays has something tied to digital forensics. You all know you carry your phones with you everywhere you go. There's a lot of information in those phones that could be helpful to resolving a crime or being involved in an operation. So digital forensics is a big part of it. They work with a lot of partners as well. The analysis of all those cyber threats that come in. The Department of the Navy is a huge target, whether it's a foreign entity or even a homegrown entity. And so they try to analyze that and then help with the counter aspects to it. And then ultimately, in the end, they also do help with the technical support within our investigations and operations, whether it's some type of piece of equipment that we might need or could be helpful or that we could utilize, and they are a part of that. So it's a very big mission for them, and they love it. They love getting on the computer, and they love working from that computer, and they love helping us find that little nugget of information that, as an investigator, talking to everybody, maybe I don't see very well, and these guys tend to find it. These guys and gals. So that's the cyber directorate as a whole. We have global operations. This is a mission area, but it's kind of a collection of a lot of different missions and a lot of different specialists. So we have forensic teams, we have technical support teams. There's a variety of different things that we have, and those all fall under global operations. In here is the Protective Operations Field Office. They protect the Secretary of the Navy, and they protect other admirals, much like the Secret Service protects the president. We have teams that follow and protect our sensitive individuals, such as the Secretary of the Navy. We have a whole field office that helps support that. We have an Office of Special Projects. They do a lot of special investigations, not just always the espionage type cases, but they will do some high level criminal investigations as well. Maybe some of the crimes that may have been committed in the forward deployed bases or things of that nature, they might have to take care of those. In there, we also have polygraph services. We have quite a few polygraph specialists that's all they do all day long. They do either a counterintelligence polygraph, or they help with the hiring polygraphs, or if there's a criminal case where the person's willing to take a polygraph, they'll come and help us, which is great. The Technical Services Field Office, the one right there on top, I think that they have a very, very interesting job where they kind of help put up special cameras and other types of surveillance type work that they do, and they can help us out with. They do a drone program. They have drones, things like that they work with. They're very hands-on. They like to get dirty, and those guys are always willing to help out. Guys and gals are always willing to help out. But that all falls under our global operations. And these aren't necessarily all agents. In polygraph, we have non-agents that are polygraph specialists as well. In the Protective Operations Field Office, like I mentioned before, we actually have a lot of military members that come and work on the teams. And then we have forensic support as well. That's not always an agent. And that's under the global. So I want to jump to recruitment. So that's basically the agency as a whole, what we do, the different missions that we do, and some of the engagements. Recruitment is where we kind of go into my world now. One of the things we're trying to do is just find the right people that are going to make NCIS their home and their career and their family, much like I have for the last 16 years. And we do recruitment through a variety of different ways. The biggest is open announcements. You're probably familiar with USA Jobs. If you haven't started looking for a federal job yet, when you do start, USA Jobs seems to be the place where a lot of federal entities, not just law enforcement, but any federal job tends to be on USA Jobs. We do occasionally put an open announcement in there. We usually will send something out on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and all that kind of stuff in order to let people know that there's an open announcement, but we'll do that periodically. I think the last one we had was back in May. And then the other aspect is targeted recruiting. So we have recruiters that are out in the field that engage with people, communities, clubs, things of that nature, where they're always looking for somebody that they think will be a good fit into the agency. We go to college engagements like this. We also do law enforcement connections, community outreach, job fairs, and then of course we cross the military all the time. So they usually have like little job fairs and things of that nature. But really our push is to get out there, get the word out. A lot of people don't know really what we do. And that's why we're trying to get out there and tell people more and more about what we do. Because if we just hired people that were in the military all the time, we'd get that very military sense. We like the variety. We like the opportunity for people to come in and actually teach us a few new things, right? And help us grow and change as a great agency. And I threw the NCIS.Navy.mil in there. If anybody has kind of any more questions that we're not going to get answered here today, or just wants to check in on that once in a while, that's our main public webpage. Feel free to go in there. There is a career section. There's all other kinds of information as well that you can go look at.
James, we do have a question. What kind of preparation would you recommend for someone who wants to enter the field? Can it be experience-wise, education, professional, etc.?
Yeah. So good question. I think what we see now is pretty heavy competition to get in the job, and so therefore those of us that look at resumes and have to evaluate a resume based upon what we think is going to make a good NCIS agent in particular, or any employee, is really something that helps them stand out from the rest. And I know that sounds like a broad answer, but I'll give you some examples. These days, a lot of people are coming out of getting their bachelor's degree, right? And they're either rolling right into their master's, or they're choosing to go get some life experience within that job. And I would say that if you could do one, if you could only do one or the other, then go get that life experience right out of college, because we want to be able to see that you can navigate the perils of life as well as life within the job. And if you go get your master's, that's great. It shows you can learn, you're going to better yourself, all of that. The great ones are really when they're doing something together or simultaneously, where they're getting some life experience, but they're kind of just chipping away at their master's in the process. I think that shows a whole lot of initiative. That shows somebody that is willing to continue their education, which we have to do all the time, but also get down and dirty and get the work done and deal with people. So that's the other thing that I think really stands out is those individuals who do jobs or have, I mean, the clubs and everything, those are all good. It helps you engage more, but also with the jobs that really help in the engagement with people and learning about people and learning how to deal with people, because that relationship and that rapport really comes into play for an agent. An agent needs to be able to walk up to anybody and strike up a conversation with them, because that conversation could be, very critical to the results of investigation. I'm not saying we trick people and all that kind of stuff. We're very good at getting people to talk to us. We sit down, get them to tell us their life story. Whether they're a victim, they need to be comfortable with us. Whether they're a subject, they still need to kind of be comfortable with us, right, to talk to us. And I think we do that through that life experience of being out there and having jobs where we engage with people in certain aspects of their life, whether it's a tough part of their life. Like we have social services folks that eventually want to come and work with us, and what they've been working with, for a couple of years prior, would be folks that are in a bad situation, such as victims of domestic crime, or the homeless, or criminals that are rehabilitated. Those kinds of individuals that we see their worst day, because that's when we show up, is a lot of times on their worst day. How do you talk to somebody who is in the midst of their worst day? That's something that you can't quite teach. You have to kind of learn it through that experience. And if you have that coming to the table, then I think that makes you a stronger candidate for a job like this. Now, I say that, and that is really a lot about the criminal investigation standpoint. But counterintelligence, it's the same thing. We need to be able to go talk to people, because if we can't talk to people, we can't gather the information that we need. And so you see that one particular aspect or character trait of somebody that you can do that, and you can see that they can be successful in both the counterintelligence world and the criminal investigations world. Cyber skills are huge, and we know that there's a lot of training and a lot of certification that goes into that. My advice is, if that's something that you really enjoy, it's something that you want to do, by all means, go get every certificate that you can find. Go try to get some operational experience, protecting networks, and things of that nature, and then you can really bring more to the table, because you can come out with a cyber degree, right? But can you put it to use and put it to action? Those kinds of traits will really help out in the process. Does that answer the question, Gabe, you think?
I believe so. Have another question, a few questions in the chat as well.
Sure.
First one, can you tell us more about the day-to-day for intelligence or business specialists?
Sure. So I would say the day-to-day for intelligence is a little bit different than the business specialist. Is that what they asked, the business specialist? I would say that the business specialists are running a business from day to day is a lot of office work, right? It's a lot of paperwork, people work with inside the agency, a lot of communication that you have to deal with, but also those opportune moments to kind of find efficiencies in the work that we do. Sometimes working in the department, under the Department of Navy umbrella, it's a bureaucracy. I'll admit there is red tape, and being able to navigate that and navigate it quickly is something that becomes almost a daily battle sometimes. And I think it's helpful when you have kind of an outside the box thought on how to approach something. That's always helpful in the business realm. The intelligence specialists are their day to day is a lot of reading, definitely, right? They have to keep track of other intelligence reports that are going on. We have some that sit on kind of we call it MTAC, which is the Multiple Threat Alert Center. It's like a watch floor. It's a 24-hour watch floor that we have. Some people work there where they're monitoring things going on in the news, but they're also monitoring things going on in the classified world and the intelligence world to see if that relates to any ongoing operations. So they'll work on a watch floor real time to help coordinate that. But the other intel analysts that we have work in the field offices, and those individuals, they get to review kind of ongoing cases and find ways that the information that they're hearing might fit into this or might answer some of the questions. So it is a very analytical, really diving deep into the specifics of a lot of cases. and trying to find correlation or relationships with other cases or other entities. So they like to really read and really dig into that and have to report that out as well. So their days generally, 8, 9, 10-hour day that you're putting in, but it's a lot of correspondence and it's a lot of communication. There's a lot of briefing in that as well. They do take on some of the responsibility of sitting down and maybe briefing somebody, talking to them about the travel that they took and things that may have happened on that trip that may relate to other things, and then reporting it back to the intelligence community. So a lot of their stuff is on the classified level stuff, and so they have to work on those systems as well, and that could be a big part of their job as they work through that. Does that help answer that question?
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah.
The next question, how does the NCIS decide where they are stationed in the world? What goes into consideration? I think that means for prospective candidates.
Yeah, okay. So generally it's at the needs of the agency, and those needs tend to change and ebb and flow, basically. So, for example, as things kind of got ramped up in the Middle East and things of that nature, we started opening up offices over there, and we had to send more and more people over to the Middle East, right? And as that tends to kind of wind down, if the next threat is to the Navy is maybe somewhere in the Pacific, then we'll kind of flow that way and have to put people more out in the Pacific offices, Japan and Hawaii and stuff like that. But ultimately, for an agent's career, agents tend to have to move periodically. We do have to do a mobility agreement. That is one of the requirements as an agent. We have to be willing to move at the needs of the agency. And those decisions aren't taken lightly. We don't want to force people to obviously move if there's a conflict there or whatever it might be, but we can't leave people overseas forever, right? So one of the unique things about us having these overseas offices is also one of the things that makes us more mobile, because we just can't leave them overseas for years and years and years and years and years. They got to come back, but we also need those individuals to go out there in their place. And so that tends to drive some of that aspect as well. Ultimately, the individual drives a lot of that decision process in themselves. So we probably have open announcements. This is after you're already hired in. We'll have open announcements that you can bid on. So say, for example, I've been in DC for, been at headquarters for just over a year, or about a year. But before that, I was in DC for 3 years. And maybe I'm up for a rotation. I know that, it's probably time for me to move on. I'm looking at those lists and I'm saying, where can I go? Where does my family want to go? It sounds interesting. Do we want to go overseas? Do we want to do this? Do we want to do that? Taking charge of that now and having those plans is the best way forward. And then that way I get to control where I go, so that when they call me and they're like, hey, we really want you to go to this place that maybe I don't really want to go to, it's too late because I'm already chosen to go to this other location. So that's one way to work on that. But actual hiring, first time hiring, we try to make those decisions based upon where the individual is living at the time that they're selected into the process, but then also the places that they want to go. So in the hiring process that I'll get to here in a sec, there is a list of places that we ask you to fill out your preferences and then rank those preferences. So at the time that you're in the hiring pool and we're looking to fill a class, an academy class from an agent standpoint, an academy class, we'll try to pick those that want those locations. We want you to get your number one choice. We really do want you to have that. But when everybody wants, what's a good example? we tend to have a lot of people in DC. You know, if everybody wants to come here to DC, we wouldn't be able to fill all the other jobs in the United States. So you generally only go to a office within the continental United States. So one of those main 10 field offices for your first duty station. And usually then it's only about five field offices, because they're better designed to have training agents. So as you come out of the academy and you go to training in your field office, your field training, that comes from a select few field offices, usually San Diego, Marine Corps West, which is in Pendleton, DC can be, and Norfolk, Virginia, and Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, are pretty heavy training field offices. Sometimes we get a few down in the Southeast in Mayport. Maybe we'll get one or two up in the Northeast, but those are pretty much the main training field offices. And Great Lakes can be as well, central field office. But that's kind of where we focus on for all the new hires coming in. We really want to place them in those number one choices. Is that good, Gabe?
Yeah, no, that's great. And last but definitely not least, how accurate is the NCIS reality versus the NCIS on TV? What are the biggest myths?
So Hollywood is Hollywood at its best. It really is. I know in past, when the show first came out, the writers would come to headquarters and kind of get briefings on some cases that we do, and they would kind of gather a lot of great ideas from the work that we had already done. And so there is some similarities in maybe the concept of what the crime was, or who the victim or subject might have been, that ties into it. Now it's just gotten out of control. Right now we have like 5 different ones. And, you know, I really wish we had that great boathouse out in Los Angeles like they have on the show, or the unique place down in the French Quarter in New Orleans. We do have an agent or two in New Orleans, but they're not in the French Quarter, unfortunately. But I think Hollywood really takes the lead at that point, and it certainly gets sensationalized. I think there's a lot of great aspects to this job. Certainly the travel that we get to do and the places we get to go and see. Now, I can't jump in a car in DC and be in Norfolk in apparently 2 minutes. But I certainly have had a chance to see some just amazing places in the world. I remember it's been about 10 years now, you know, waking up one day and I'm in Tahiti, and I'm there to support a ship that decided it was going to pull into Tahiti, and I had to fly out there from Hawaii. And it just amazing. And then amazing cultures you get to see and you get to be involved with, and that kind of travel. I wish we saw more of that on the show, because you know, there is this amazing world factor that kind of comes into this job. But ultimately, all said and done, you know, I never see the TV show actors doing their paperwork, certainly not putting enough time into their paperwork. We do have to write reports. That is something that takes up a lot of our time. But we can have as much interaction with the community as we choose to. And generally, it makes you a better investigator to have that engagement in the community and to get out there and talk to people one-on-one, which I think is something you see in the show a lot of that one-on-one engagement or communicating. So I think there's a fair share of good and similarities in there that I think make it fun. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay. So I'm just going to move into the hiring process here for a second. And the special agent hiring process is, it has 8 phases. You're not complete until you're in the hiring pool. Each phase you could be potentially eliminated along the way. Currently averaging, I looked at the averages today. I think we actually got it down a little bit to 7 months. sometimes more. I can tell you when I got hired, I started the process overseas, and it took me 18 months. I'm in charge. I'm not going to let things happen for 18 months before somebody gets hired. I've learned my own lesson in that way, but sometimes it's dependent upon these different steps that I'll share with you and things that the individual might be doing, or we might be waiting on the individual to do that take longer. But averaging about 7 months for the process into the hiring pool. And then after that, it's just waiting for maybe a position to open up or get selected for a school that's coming up. The other positions in NCIS, basically they're mostly advertised on USA Jobs. It generally requires the interview, the background check, the drug test. We are a federal agency. Drug testing is mandatory, and as a drug-free workplace, and then selection after that. So this is just a quick view of the special agent hiring process. You can see phase 1 is your initial screening. Basically, when we have an open application or we do a targeted recruiting event, we have you send your resume. We'll take a look at it, see if you even qualify to be at the pay level of an agent, and then the other things that you bring to the table. And if you pique our interest in that resume, then you get to move on to the interview panel, which is three usually agents, 3 NCIS personnel who will ask you a series of questions. They'll have you in. It's very formal. Sit down, talk things through. There's a whole series of questions that we ask, and then you do a writing sample for us as well. And then you get a little bit more information about the next phases after that during this interview panel too. This is the first impression is your resume, and then the second big impression is this interview panel. If you don't convince these individuals that you belong here, then generally this is where we kind of lose a good percentage of those that are trying to get the job. After the interview panel, we do the polygraph. That may take some time to get scheduled. It is a lifestyle polygraph, so we ask a lot of questions during the initial screening. We have you fill out a bunch of paperwork. The biggest thing here is, did they lie to us, right? We don't want you to lie to us, but also, do we have any character issues that we need to deal with, or do we have any criminal issues that just are not going to be able to work for us within the NCIS? And so some of that gets weeded out in the polygraph. We do lose people over the polygraph, but that could be an elimination spot as well. And then on to phase 4 is your background investigation. This is when we go talk to your friends and your neighbors and your bosses and former bosses, maybe some of your teachers at your school possibly. We run background checks on you, see if there's been some criminal activity or arrests or engagement with police. So we may want to know what that's all about. We look at your credit. Credit's important because you get yourselves into debt, and we understand school loans and stuff like that. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people that have been blowing off paying things back, and now they have debtors after them and stuff like that. That makes you vulnerable as an agent to criminal activity. So we have to weed those aspects out. So we do a pretty lengthy background check and talk to folks, and we'll talk to you in the process too if we need some clarification or what it might be. And then after the background, we move on to the medical exam. There are requirements. If you go to the webpage that I gave you, I guess I should have put them in here, but there are some medical requirements. We're looking, we need healthy people that can make good, rational decisions. But you're going to be carrying a gun, and while we're not in patrol and we don't necessarily break out in a foot chase, I've been in probably 3 or 4 foot chases myself in my career. You have to maintain a certain amount of physicality with this job, because coming on and off ships and traveling and engaging with people that you gotta have to be ready to control at any moment if they kind of flip out on you or whatever. You still need to do all of that, and so that's why that medical exam is important. And then phase 6 is usually your drug test. And then as far as the things that you have to do, that's pretty much it when you get to phase 6 and you get your drug test and hopefully it comes back negative. And then it goes into a review board. And that review board is several of us in the hiring team that sit down and look at all of this together. We go back to your initial screening, your interview panel, your polygraph, your background, and we're just looking to say, okay, is this the right candidate? Is this the best candidate? And if selected, then you move into the hiring pool. And then the hiring pool is where we draw from to give the official job offers to go to the academy. And usually you go to the academy first. You'll check in there, which is down in Brunswick, Georgia, at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. That's where you usually will check in, and they do your whole onboarding and process there. But sometimes you get hired beforehand, before we send you off to the academy. That has happened over time as well. So I think that once we draw from that and you get your official offer, it'll come with a location. I know with me, I said I didn't have a preference. I'll go wherever. I don't have to stay there my entire career, right? And they were said, yeah, you don't have to stay there your entire career. So okay, I'll go wherever NCIS wants me. That's how bad I'd like to work at NCIS. And I remember them calling me back and saying, okay, your offer is Paris Island. And I said, great, I'll take it. And then I'm on the computer going, where the heck is Paris Island, South Carolina? So, you know, there's the offers will come with those locations that we select you for. So we won't just say, hey, here's a job. We'll say, hey, here's a job, and it'll be starting for you in DC, or it'll be starting for you in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, or something along those lines. And then you'll have the opportunity to choose whether or not you'd like to join us. And so that's the special agent hiring process altogether. Like I said, for the other employee jobs, whether you're an analyst, or whether you want to be an analyst or a business specialist, or administrative support, things of that nature, usually it's you'll have the interview panel once you submit into the hiring process. You'll have your interview. They'll do a background, which still they look at credit, they look at other things. Depending on your security clearance later, they won't necessarily go out and knock on every single door at first, but that'll come a little later with your clearance. And then a drug test. Those are usually those phases for anything other than the agent process. Okay, so I wanted to quickly do a plug for the NCIS internship program. We are open now for internship applications. So we are open now for it. I know the second line on here, the unpaid internship, it is unpaid. We haven't quite been able to make a paid internship work. So I know that's kind of a turnoff for a lot of folks. But I can tell you that even from resumes that we look at when we see internship on any federal agency or any place, that becomes very important in the decision process. So, as you can see, it's a minimum 18 weeks, 16 hours a week while you're going to school, and then the internship cycles along there as well. And the application deadline for this next group is going to be the 1st of February. And so please, if you're interested and you have time and ability to do this, go check that out. It's still ncis.navy.mil under careers, but it's under the internship part. And then you can email that email address if you're interested in getting an answer on it. But it is open now, and we're certainly accepting applications for that. And that's all I got. Gabe, is there any more questions or other items?
What do you guys look for in your internship application?
So the internship application, same thing, a resume, but we're just looking to see, all right, they're going to school. Are they still going to be enrolled during the time period that that we allow the internships? So you have to be enrolled all the way through the internship time that you're working. You can't like graduate in June and it's expected to go through July. It's just a part of the federal requirement on the program. But we're just looking that you're interested in whatever area that it is. And these are internships, by the way, not just for agents. You know, if you're interested in HR, I would love to have an intern in HR come help me out. If you're interested in IT support, we may have some places for that, or other business aspects or administrative stuff, not just with the agent stuff. This is NCIS all the way, you know, internship type stuff. So as you go in there, you can see there's all these different locations and different jobs and different things to consider. So if that interests you, then go there. But we're just looking to make sure that you're moving on through school. We're trying to see if you've shown some initiative in some other places, and usually that's the junior senior year that we're looking at. But you know, if you're interested, maybe to set up for in your junior year and you're already in your sophomore year, whatever it might be, shoot an email to the internship coordinator, and she'll get back to you with some clarification on that.
Awesome, thank you. Another question here: does the NCIS offer any remote internships?
I'm sorry, I said again, Gabe.
Does the NCIS offer any remote internships?
So it's really hard to do remote internships, but I will say, and we had to shut it down during COVID, unfortunately, because we just couldn't manage an individual from afar very well and not seeing them face to face, and not having them come in and kind of, we could sit down and kind of go through all our different systems with them or all the different things. So I think it's very difficult to do that, but I'll talk to my internship coordinator about it, and I can see if we can put some information out with regards to whether or not I think it would be very, very difficult to do from a remote standpoint. So I'm gonna guess no, but I can talk to the coordinator and kind of get a better answer.
Great, thank you. I don't have any other questions in the chat. I know we are at our time, but is there a way that students can reach out to you or anyone in the recruiting team that might be a good contact for them?
Yeah, definitely. So in the at the www.ncis.navy.mil website, right here at the bottom of the screen, if you go there and under careers, there's a couple different email addresses, such as for Special Agent Recruitment. If you have any questions, you can go there. For the Internship Program, we have a separate email address in there that you can send some emails to. That comes to me and my team. So if you do have any questions or anything like that, then by all means jump in there and send us an email, and we'll get back to you.
Thank you. I'm just putting that link to the chat for students if they'd like to see it. Don't have any other chat, but thank you so much, James. Really appreciate the time that you're spending, you know, explaining who you guys are, what you guys do, and your guys' current open opportunities. James will be back with us again tomorrow for another presentation. For any of you that may have missed or came in a little bit late, please feel free to join us tomorrow again at 4 p.m. And you can sign up for that on Careers for Terps as well. Thank you, James.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody.
Great job, James.